Fowler recalls horrific Champions League experience as son caught up in chaos. I'm 47 years old, and I've been going to the game for 40 years, and the scenes I endured in Paris were by far the worst I've ever experienced. I can't even describe what so many thousands and thousands and thousands of innocent, ordinary decent Liverpool fans went through, and what I went through, as a parent. My son was caught up in it, and I had to leave my TV duties to go back out there and try to find him. Any parent will tell you what it feels like when you're so desperate to do something and so helpless to change what was horrific, disgusting behavior from the police. I say I can't describe it, but it was like those films where everything breaks down totally. It was American Nightmare, it was The Purge, it was Walking Dead. That's how bad it was. And I never, ever want to see anything like that again. I wasn't at Hillsborough, but I reckon it was by far the worst since then. I stood and witnessed kids as young as 5 being tear-gassed, women collapsing as they were tear-gassed after coming through turnstiles with a valid ticket that worked. It was embarrassing for the people of France, just how disgusting their police were. And even more embarrassing were the downright lies of their politicians who added such insult to the injury their police inflicted. I watched some of the committee hearing in the French Senate with their Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin, who was responsible for this utter horror show. And he's standing there blatantly lying. Smugly lying, his face showing he knew he was lying and didn't care a damn about it. I was thinking, wow, wow, wow. People are laughing at your lies, and you still think it's perfectly acceptable to carry on with such utter bullshit. That shows you how corrupt it all was. People know there is so much corruption in politics, we've experienced it enough in this country over the past few years, but this guy? An utter criminal. The corruption of his actions deserved to see him in prison. At one point, he actually had the nerve, and honestly, I almost got on a plane straight back to Paris to praise the police and say only their calm actions avoided a serious incident. Well, let me tell you, pal, it was only the calm and the clear, level-headed thinking of the Liverpool fans which prevented the French police from causing a real tragedy. Because lives could so easily have been lost. Stop and think about that for a second. The actions of the police came so close to killing people. Gerald Darmanin, you should go to prison for that alone. And anyone in any French media out there wants to quote me on that, then please feel free. I'm going to tell you my story, not because I'm more important or different, but quite the opposite. Because my story was typical of the carnage I saw around me, and to understand what happened to me is to understand what happened to half the supporters at that stadium. At a pause in my TV duties, I called my lad, as dads do, to ask if he was in okay, was the atmosphere good, that sort of thing. When through, it was to the sound of chaos and panic. He was caught up in the middle of a group that had suffered the terror of being crushed and that obscene kettling the French police set up, as many thousands people said to me they thought they wouldn't come out of it. They were stuck there for hours, and when they finally got through their gates were closed. Of course they were. That's what the police wanted, chaos and carnage. He was in tears as he described what was going on, and I did what every parent would, abandoned my TV duties and went out to try and get him out of there. I was one side of the fence, he the other, but in a crowd with valid tickets who were locked out and being tear-gassed. It is the worst feeling in the world, being so helpless with your kids in danger. The scenes I witnessed were horrifying. People were pushed up against the fence saying, "Help us, Robbie," and I could help in any way other than to give water. Andy Cook, the former police chief constable of Merseyside, was there alongside me too, and we both saw grown men sobbing. He is now an inspector of constabulary, and I can only imagine what his assessment of the French police would be. Eventually, after what seemed like a lifetime, I was able to find him, getting him out of the crowd. He eventually got into the stadium 5 minutes before halftime. The next morning, he said to me, "And it broke my heart, Dad, I can't get the noise out of my head." And so many parents will have words like that spoken to them over the next months because it was so traumatic. It didn't end there either. Liverpool fans were tear-gassed coming out of the stadium and they only wanted to get out of that hellhole. They and Real Madrid fans were attacked by local gangs too, with police just looking on, doing nothing. Jason McAteer's wife was one of thousands attacked, and just to put another emotional note on it, my phone rang before I left, and it was my son, saying, "Dad, please be careful coming out, because it's horrendous out here." My son, after what he had been through, worried his dad would go through it. No one should have gone through that. These are people who spent thousands of pounds on tickets and travel and accommodation, getting ripped over by profiteers every step of the way for the best night of their lives. And it was a nightmare. France should not be allowed to host another final. Full stop. They are not fit to host the Olympics either, and any inquiry must address that. No police or organization who put lives in serious danger with their methods can be trusted to host another event again. People need compensation too, it won't make up for it, but the authorities have to be hit where they understand it most. They don't care about people, but they clearly care about money, and if it costs them as it should, then they may just stop it happening again. And there's one final thing I want to say. This could have happened to any English club because it was clearly premeditated by the French police. It wasn't a Liverpool thing, it's not a tribal thing. We're all football fans, and when horrific injustice like this happens, we need to understand it for what it is and all work together to ensure it doesn't happen again.